Archangel Michael says, "Stop for just a moment. Don't scroll away. Don't let your mind convince you that this is just another message, because it isn't. Heaven has interrupted your day for a reason, and that reason has everything to do with you. There are only 3 minutes left before a hidden truth begins to unfold in your life. God did not allow you to arrive here by accident. Before the next chapter of your journey opens, there is something you must hear, something that has been concealed from you for far too long. If you ignore this moment, you may spend weeks wondering why doors suddenly closed, why certain people changed, or why your heart kept sensing that something was happening behind the scenes. But because you are here now, heaven has given you another opportunity to understand what your eyes could not yet see. Archangel Michael says, "For days you have felt that something was different. Perhaps you couldn't explain it. Perhaps everyone around you told you that you were imagining things. Yet your spirit continued whispering that something important was taking place beyond what your physical eyes could recognize. That whisper did not come from fear. It came from discernment. God placed that feeling inside you because He wanted you to begin paying attention before the hidden became visible. You have been standing at the edge of a season unlike any other, and today is the day the veil begins to lift. The secret is not what you think it is. Many people believe the greatest dangers come with loud warnings, dramatic events, or obvious signs. But the greatest turning points often arrive quietly. They arrive through a conversation you almost ignored, a delay that frustrated you, a door that refused to open, a person who suddenly disappeared without explanation. You called those moments disappointments. Heaven called them protection. What felt like rejection was often divine redirection, preventing you from walking into situations that would have drained your peace, stolen your confidence, and delayed your purpose. Archangel Michael says, "There are people who never understood why you kept moving forward after everything you endured. They watched you face disappointment, betrayal, loneliness, and unanswered prayers, expecting your faith to disappear. Instead, every storm shaped you into someone stronger. They cannot understand why your spirit continues to rise after every setback. What they fail to realize is that your strength has never come from yourself alone. It has always been sustained by the one who sees every unseen battle. You've asked God questions in silence that no one else has ever heard. You wondered why certain relationships collapsed, why opportunities vanished just when they seemed perfect, why some prayers appeared delayed while others were answered unexpectedly. You carried those questions quietly because you believed perhaps you would never know the answers. But heaven never ignored them. Every question reached God's heart, even when no immediate answer followed. Divine timing often feels like silence until the appointed moment arrives. Archangel Michael says, that appointed moment is drawing near. The secret God wants you to understand is not merely about another person, it is also about you. There has been something inside you that you underestimated for years. You saw weakness where heaven saw preparation. You saw delay where heaven saw construction. You saw ordinary days where angels were building extraordinary foundations beneath your feet. Every disappointment became another stone supporting the future God prepared long before you realized it. The enemy hoped you would quit during the waiting season. Discouragement became one of the greatest weapons formed against you. There were mornings when simply getting out of bed required faith. There were nights when your prayers consisted only of tears because words no longer seemed enough. Yet every tear became a prayer heaven recorded. Not one moment of your suffering was forgotten. Not one sacrifice escaped God's attention. Archangel Michael says, "Someone has quietly watched your journey. Not to celebrate your growth, but to measure it. They expected your spirit to remain broken. Instead, they witnessed resilience they could not explain. This unsettled them because your peace challenged their expectations. While they invested energy trying to understand your strength, heaven continued strengthening you in ways they could never see. They focused on appearances while God transformed your heart. But this hidden secret reaches even deeper. There is something heaven has been arranging without your knowledge. Conversations you never attended. Opportunities developing beyond your sight. Hearts changing in places you have never visited. While you believed nothing was happening, God continued moving pieces into perfect alignment. Divine preparation often happens behind closed doors, so that faith grows before evidence appears. Archangel Michael says, "You have interpreted some delays as abandonment, but they were actually invitations to trust more deeply. Every extra day of waiting strengthened qualities that instant success could never produce. Patience became wisdom. Humility became discernment. Compassion replaced bitterness. The very experiences that seemed to slow your life became the evidence that heaven was shaping someone capable of carrying greater blessings without losing gratitude." Now listen carefully, because this next truth is important. During these final moments before the hidden begins revealing itself, guard your heart against fear. Fear always rushes ahead of faith and tries to write endings that God never authored. Do not allow anxious thoughts to convince you that every unknown outcome must become disaster. The same God who guided you yesterday remains present today and will already be waiting in tomorrow. Archangel Michael says, "Within what seems like an ordinary day, you will begin noticing small confirmations. They may seem insignificant at first. A conversation, a memory, a peaceful feeling that appears without explanation, a verse that suddenly speaks directly to your circumstances. Do not dismiss these moments. Heaven often whispers before it speaks loudly. Those who learn to recognize gentle guidance are prepared when greater responsibilities arrive. You have spent too much time believing you needed everyone's approval before walking into your purpose. That season is ending. God never assigned your destiny to public opinion. He assigned it to obedience. Some people will understand your path, others never will. Neither changes the calling placed upon your life. Archangel Michael says, "The greatest secret about your life is not hidden because God wanted to keep it from you. It remained hidden because the previous version of you was not yet ready to carry it. But something has changed. Your heart has softened. Your faith has matured. Your perspective has expanded through trials you once wished would disappear. Now you are standing closer than ever to understanding why none of your pain was wasted. And as heaven prepares to reveal what comes next, there is one truth you must hold on to with absolute confidence. The next few moments are not designed to frighten you. They are designed to prepare you. Because what God is about to uncover will explain years of unanswered questions, and once that first piece of the mystery is revealed, you will never see your journey the same way again. Archangel Michael says, "What you are stepping into now is not just understanding. It is recognition. The moment the first layer of truth begins to unfold, your spirit will respond before your mind fully comprehends it. That is how heaven prepares you for revelation. It does not overwhelm you all at once. It reveals in waves so that your soul can adjust to what your life is becoming. You may already feel a subtle shift taking place inside you, a sense that something is aligning, even if you cannot yet define what it is. That feeling is not imagination. It is preparation. Heaven is adjusting your awareness so that when the truth becomes visible, you will not reject it out of shock or disbelief. Many people miss their moment because they are unprepared for clarity, but you are being prepared right now, in real time. Archangel Michael says, "There is a reason certain patterns in your life have repeated themselves. Situations that felt familiar, relationships that mirrored old wounds, opportunities that looked promising but ended the same way. You thought you were stuck in cycles, but heaven was revealing patterns so that you could finally recognize them. Awareness always comes before transformation. You cannot break what you cannot see, and now those patterns are beginning to lose their hold on you. The emotional weight they once carried is weakening. The confusion that used to surround them is clearing. This is not because circumstances have suddenly changed, but because your perception is changing. When understanding rises, illusions collapse. Archangel Michael says, "There are moments in life when heaven quietly removes distractions without warning. People you once felt attached to begin fading from your emotional focus. Situations that once consumed your attention lose their intensity. You may think you are simply moving on, but in truth, you are being separated from what no longer belongs in your next season." Separation is not always loud. Sometimes it is so gentle that you only notice it after it has already happened. You were never meant to carry everything you tried to hold on to. Some burdens were never assigned to you, yet you carried them out of love, loyalty, or hope. But heaven is now lifting what you were never meant to keep. And as those burdens fall away, You may feel both relief and uncertainty at the same time. That is normal when transformation begins to outgrow familiarity. Archangel Michael says, "The secret unfolding in your life is connected to timing, not just divine timing, but divine sequencing. Every delay, every detour, every unexpected interruption was positioning you for a moment that could not have arrived any earlier. If even one piece of your past had been different, you would not be ready for what is approaching now. That is how precise heaven operates. What once looked like missed opportunities were actually protected opportunities. What you thought you lost was often something that would have cost you more than you realized. And what seemed unfair was often the exact protection your future required. You are now beginning to see that not everything delayed is denied, and not everything denied is loss." Archangel Michael says, "Pay attention to your inner stillness during this time. It is becoming clearer for a reason. Confusion has been slowly lifting because clarity is about to take its place. When clarity arrives, it will feel simple, almost obvious. That is how truth works when it is finally seen without distortion. You will begin noticing that your reactions to certain people and situations are changing. Where there was once emotional intensity, there may now be calm observation. Where there was once confusion, there is now quiet understanding forming beneath the surface. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It is discernment awakening." Archangel Michael says, "There is something ahead of you that requires a version of you that no longer reacts from old pain. That is why healing has been happening in layers you did not consciously choose. You are being prepared for emotional stability in environments that once would have overwhelmed you. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet ability to remain centered when everything around you shifts. And even now, as this truth continues unfolding, do not rush to define it. Let it reveal itself fully. Heaven does not reveal everything at once because understanding is part of preparation. When you are ready to carry something greater, you are also given the patience to wait for full clarity." Archangel Michael says, "What is coming next is not meant to disturb you. It is meant to confirm what your spirit has already sensed, but your mind has not yet fully accepted. The signs have already begun. You only need to recognize them now without fear. And as this second layer closes, remember this. Nothing is being taken from you without purpose. Even what feels like uncertainty is part of alignment. The path ahead is not random. It is guided, precise, and unfolding exactly as it was meant to." Archangel Michael says, "The path ahead is not random. It is guided, precise, and unfolding exactly as it was meant to. But now you must hear what heaven has been waiting to reveal since before this message reached your eyes. The greatest obstacle standing between you and the next season of your life has never been your lack of ability. It has been the invisible weight you carried without realizing it. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every harsh word spoken over your future became a burden that quietly convinced you to expect less than what God had already prepared. For too long, you questioned your worth because you measured yourself by seasons of struggle instead of by the promises of heaven. You looked at closed doors and assumed they defined your future. You looked at delayed answers and believed they reflected God's opinion of you. But heaven has never measured your value by temporary circumstances. Your identity was established long before your first battle and long before your first victory. Nothing that happened to you changed what God already declared over your life." Archangel Michael says, "There is a reason you survived moments that should have broken you. There were nights when your strength seemed completely gone. Days when you smiled for everyone around you while quietly wondering how much longer you could continue. Yet somehow you kept moving. That somehow was never chance. It was grace. While you believed you were walking alone, angels were strengthening what you could not strengthen yourself. The enemy celebrated too early. Every setback convinced those watching that your story had reached its limit. They assumed your silence meant surrender. They mistook your patience for weakness and your kindness for inability. But heaven often hides its greatest victories inside seasons that appear ordinary. Seeds buried beneath the soil look forgotten until the day they suddenly break through the surface. Archangel Michael says, "You are much closer to that breakthrough than you realize. In fact, pieces have already begun moving around you. A conversation has shifted. A heart has softened. A decision is quietly being prepared. Even circumstances that seem unrelated are positioning themselves for a greater purpose. What appears disconnected to human understanding is perfectly connected in heaven's design. You may wonder why God rarely reveals everything at once. The answer is simple. If you saw the entire journey from the beginning, fear might convince you to stop before reaching the promise. Instead, heaven gives enough light for the next step, trusting that faith will carry you until greater clarity arrives. Every step taken in trust builds the strength required for the destination. Archangel Michael says, "Someone listening right now has been asking for a sign, not because they doubted God, but because they were exhausted from waiting. If that is you, understand this clearly. The fact that you are still searching, still praying, still hoping despite everything you have endured is already evidence that heaven has not released its hand from your life. Hope does not survive this long without divine strength sustaining it. There are people who misunderstood your quiet seasons. They thought your absence meant defeat. They interpreted your silence as failure. They never considered that heaven sometimes calls its strongest servants away from noise so they can hear divine instruction without distraction. Isolation has often been preparation disguised as loneliness. Archangel Michael says, "Do not fear the changing relationships around you. Every season has its own companions. Some people were assigned to help you through one chapter but not the next. Others chose to leave because they were comfortable with the version of you that doubted yourself, but became uncomfortable when confidence began replacing insecurity. Never apologize for growing into the person God always intended you to become. The secret continuing to unfold is also revealing something about your future. There is an opportunity approaching that will require courage instead of certainty. You may not have every answer before taking the first step, but you will have enough peace to know you are moving in the right direction. Heaven rarely waits until fear disappears. Instead, it teaches faith to become stronger than fear. Archangel Michael says, "When this opportunity appears, it may look smaller than you expected. Do not overlook humble beginnings. Great rivers begin as small streams. Mighty trees begin as tiny seeds. Many of God's greatest blessings first arrive disguised as ordinary moments because only those with spiritual discernment recognize their true value. You have spent years asking why certain dreams seemed delayed. Soon you will understand that delay protected the dream itself. Had it arrived too early, you would have lacked the wisdom to protect it, the maturity to sustain it, or the peace to enjoy it. Timing is not merely about waiting, it is about becoming." Archangel Michael says, "Look back over your life for a moment. Notice how many situations once felt unbearable but later revealed unexpected blessings. The pain was real, but it was never permanent. The confusion was genuine, but it never had the final word. Every chapter that seemed impossible eventually became part of the testimony that strengthened your faith. The same pattern is unfolding again. Only this time your confidence will arrive much sooner because you have learned to recognize God's fingerprints even before the full picture appears. And there is one final truth you must carry into the next part of this journey. The secret heaven is revealing is larger than one event, one conversation, or one breakthrough. It is revealing a completely new understanding of who you are. Once you truly see yourself through God's eyes instead of through the opinions of people, everything around you will begin changing. Decisions will become clearer. Boundaries will become stronger. Peace will become deeper. And just as that transformation begins to settle into your heart, heaven is about to uncover the one hidden peace you never expected to find. The peace that explains why this exact moment was written into your life long before you were even born. Archangel Michael says, "The peace that explains why this exact moment was written into your life long before you were even born is not hidden in the future. It has been quietly woven through your past, waiting for the day your heart became ready to recognize it. You believed certain memories existed only to remind you of pain, but heaven has been preserving those moments because they contain evidence of God's faithfulness. What once looked like random chapters were actually connected pages of the same divine story. There were times when you wondered why you escaped situations that seemed impossible to survive. You called them lucky breaks. Others called them coincidences, but heaven called them assignments. Angels were instructed to stand where you could not stand. Doors closed because danger stood behind them. Roads changed because destruction waited ahead. Even the disappointments that made you cry became invisible walls protecting your destiny. Archangel Michael says, "Do not underestimate the number of times God has quietly redirected your life. Some of the greatest miracles you will never fully know because they were the disasters that never reached you. There were conversations that never happened, accidents that never occurred, betrayals that were delayed until you were strong enough to survive them, and opportunities removed because they carried hidden consequences. Heaven's protection is often invisible until years later. You may remember moments when something inside you urged you to wait, to leave, to remain silent, or to take an unexpected path. At the time, it made little sense. Looking back, those quiet impressions changed everything. That gentle voice was never confusion. It was the Spirit of God leading you one decision at a time, even when you questioned yourself. Archangel Michael says, "The secret you are discovering is changing how you see your entire journey. You are beginning to realize that your life has never been drifting without direction. Every season carried purpose. Every delay carried preparation. Every loss carried instruction. Even your unanswered prayers were shaping the person who would eventually receive answers greater than the ones originally requested." Many people become discouraged because they compare their timeline to someone else's. They see others advancing more quickly and wonder whether heaven has forgotten them. But comparison hides one important truth. No two callings require the same preparation. What God has prepared for you demands experiences that another person may never need. That is why your road looks different. Different does not mean forgotten. Different often means uniquely designed. Archangel Michael says, "There is another truth heaven wants you to hear today. Stop apologizing for surviving. Too often you have minimized your victories because someone else did not celebrate them. You remained quiet about your progress because you feared appearing proud. But gratitude for what God has done is not pride. It is worship. Every step forward honors the one who carried you through every step behind. The enemy spent years trying to convince you that your greatest mistakes defined your future. Yet heaven has been rewriting that story all along. Your failures became classrooms instead of prisons. Your regrets became reminders of grace instead of permanent labels. The chapters you wished you could erase are becoming the very chapters that will encourage someone else never to give up. Archangel Michael says, "Soon you will encounter someone who reminds you of the person you used to be. They may be carrying the same fears, the same uncertainty, the same quiet exhaustion you once carried. Do not ignore that encounter. Heaven often allows healed people to recognize those still waiting for hope. Your testimony is not only for your own freedom. It is also a light for others walking through darkness. You have asked God to reveal your purpose, but perhaps purpose has been closer than you realized. Purpose is not always found in dramatic moments. Sometimes it begins through one encouraging word, one act of kindness, one decision to remain faithful when no one else notices. Great callings are often built through countless ordinary acts of obedience. Archangel Michael says, "As your understanding grows, another door inside your heart is opening. You are beginning to forgive yourself for things God forgave long ago. You carried guilt that heaven already removed. You replayed memories that God had already redeemed. But today that burden begins losing its power because truth always breaks the chains that lies try to strengthen. Notice how your heart feels even now. There is a quiet peace replacing questions that once demanded immediate answers. That peace is not accidental. It is confirmation that your spirit recognizes truth even before your mind fully processes it. Heaven is restoring not only your circumstances but also your confidence in God's character. Archangel Michael says, "Do not fear the days ahead. They will require courage, but they will also reveal provision. Every assignment from God arrives with the grace needed to complete it. You have spent too much time believing you needed more strength before taking the next step. In reality, strength often arrives while you are taking the step itself. Faith grows through movement, not merely through waiting. There is someone watching your life more closely than you realize, not to judge you, but because your perseverance has quietly inspired them. They have seen your integrity during difficult seasons. They have watched you continue with humility when others would have become bitter. Your example has spoken louder than your words. Even when you believed no one noticed, heaven was using your quiet faithfulness to plant seeds in other hearts." Archangel Michael says, Now another layer of the mystery is ready to be uncovered. It concerns something you have prayed about repeatedly, perhaps so many times that you almost stopped expecting an answer. Heaven heard every one of those prayers. Not one was ignored. Some were answered immediately in ways you could not yet recognize. Others were held until this exact season because their fulfillment depended on pieces that were still being arranged beyond your sight. And as those pieces begin moving together, you will soon recognize a connection you have overlooked for years. Events that once seemed unrelated will suddenly fit together with astonishing clarity. You will realize that God was never absent from your story, not for a single moment. In fact, the greatest evidence of His presence has been hidden in the very places where you once believed He was silent. And when that realization settles into your heart, the final barrier between your past and your future will begin to fall, revealing a truth so personal that it will change not only how you see your life, but how you see every prayer you have ever whispered in secret. Archangel Michael says, "The final barrier between your past and your future is beginning to fall, and as it does, you may notice something unexpected happening within your own heart. The questions that once kept you awake at night no longer carry the same weight. The memories that once brought only pain are beginning to reveal hidden lessons. This is not because your past has changed. It is because heaven is changing the way you see it. When God heals a soul, He does more than remove pain. He restores vision. For years you believed that certain chapters of your life were nothing more than wasted time. You looked back with regret and wondered what might have happened if you had made different decisions, trusted different people, or chosen another path. But heaven has been patiently waiting for this moment to remind you of something powerful. Nothing surrendered to God is ever wasted. Even your mistakes became part of the road that led you here today. Archangel Michael says, "You have carried questions that no one else knew about, questions you whispered only during your quietest prayers. You asked why certain people entered your life only to leave without explanation. You wondered why promises seemed so close before suddenly disappearing. You questioned why your faith was tested again and again while others appeared to move forward with ease. Heaven heard every one of those questions. Not one of them disappeared into silence. The answer has never been that God forgot you. The answer is that your story required preparation beyond what you could see. Imagine a master builder preparing the foundation for a great structure. Those watching from above may wonder why nothing seems to be happening, unaware that the most important work is taking place beneath the surface. In the same way, your unseen seasons have been the strongest seasons of construction. Archangel Michael says, "There is something else you must understand before the next revelation arrives. The blessing approaching your life is larger than the blessing itself. It carries responsibility. Heaven never gives lasting increase without first preparing the heart that will receive it. That is why patience became your teacher. That is why humility became your companion. That is why compassion grew through every hardship you endured. These qualities are not accidental. They are the very things that will protect your future. Some people receive opportunities they are not ready to sustain. Success arrives before character has fully matured, and what was gained quickly is often lost just as quickly. But heaven has been building your character before expanding your influence. When your next door opens, it will not depend merely on talent. It will rest upon wisdom developed through years of quiet obedience. Archangel Michael says, "You may soon notice people responding differently to you. Some will become unexpectedly supportive. Others may quietly distance themselves. Do not let either reaction determine your identity. Human opinions shift like the wind, but God's calling remains steady. Those assigned to walk with you into this new season will recognize the peace upon your life. Those who cannot understand your growth may choose another direction. Bless them anyway, and continue moving forward. There is a hidden peace waiting for you on the other side of complete surrender. Not the kind of peace that depends upon perfect circumstances, but the kind that remains steady even when life feels uncertain. This peace is one of heaven's greatest gifts because it allows you to make decisions from faith instead of fear. It quiets the noise that once filled your thoughts and replaces anxiety with confidence that God is already working beyond what your eyes can currently see. Archangel Michael says, "Have you noticed how often fear has tried to convince you that tomorrow would repeat yesterday? That is one of the oldest strategies used against faithful hearts. It whispers that because something happened before, it must happen again. But heaven declares something entirely different. Your future is not chained to your past unless you choose to carry those chains yourself. Today, those chains are breaking. The freedom you are entering begins inside your mind long before it appears in your circumstances. The moment you truly believe that God is capable of writing a new chapter, your expectations begin to change. Your prayers become bolder. Your decisions become wiser. Your hope becomes stronger. What once felt impossible slowly begins to feel inevitable because faith starts seeing what fear could never imagine. Archangel Michael says, "Soon there will be a moment that appears ordinary to everyone else but extraordinary to you. Perhaps it will be a conversation. Perhaps it will be a message you were not expecting. Perhaps it will simply be an overwhelming sense of peace arriving without explanation. Whatever form it takes, do not overlook it. Heaven often announces great changes through quiet moments rather than dramatic spectacles. The greatest miracles frequently begin in silence. You have spent too much time believing that your value depended upon what you accomplished. But God's love has never been earned through performance. It has always been rooted in His character, not yours. That truth alone has the power to free you from years of unnecessary pressure. You no longer need to prove your worth to people who were never responsible for defining it, Archangel Michael says. As this revelation continues unfolding, another mystery is about to become clear. There has been one prayer you nearly stopped praying because disappointment convinced you the answer would never come. Yet heaven never removed that prayer from its sight. In fact, unseen preparations surrounding that very request have been moving into place for much longer than you realize, and now the timing is drawing closer than ever before. The pieces are beginning to connect. The waiting season is beginning to explain itself. What once seemed like scattered fragments of your life are becoming one complete picture. But there is still one final lesson heaven wants your heart to embrace before the greatest part of this revelation can safely be placed into your hands. And when that lesson becomes clear, you will understand why God stopped you here today instead of allowing you to continue without hearing this message. Archangel Michael says, "The lesson heaven wants your heart to embrace before the greatest part of this revelation can safely be placed into your hands is simpler than you imagined, yet deeper than anything you have learned before. It is this: trust is not proven when everything makes sense. Trust is proven when you continue walking even while pieces of the picture remain hidden. If God revealed every detail of your future today, faith would no longer be necessary. But because He loves you, He invites you to grow through trust instead of certainty. For many years you believed that clarity had to come before obedience. You waited for every question to be answered before taking the next step. Yet heaven has gently been teaching you another way. Every act of obedience has produced greater understanding than endless searching ever could. The path becomes visible while you walk upon it, not while you stand still waiting for every shadow to disappear. Archangel Michael says, "There were moments when your prayers sounded almost identical day after day. You asked for wisdom. You asked for strength. You asked for peace. Sometimes you even apologized for repeating the same requests, wondering whether heaven had grown tired of hearing them. But your Father never became weary of your voice. Every prayer was treasured because every prayer revealed a heart that continued reaching toward Him despite unanswered questions. Never believe the lie that your prayers were ignored simply because the answer took longer than expected. Seeds do not grow because we constantly dig them up to check their progress. They grow quietly beneath the surface. In the same way, many of the prayers you thought were waiting have actually been growing. Their roots have been spreading into places you cannot yet see, preparing for the moment when the harvest will emerge stronger than you imagined. Archangel Michael says, "There is another truth hidden inside your waiting season. While you were asking God to change your circumstances, He was also transforming your character. Had your surroundings changed without your heart changing first, you might have repeated the same painful patterns. But heaven desired something greater than temporary relief. Heaven desired lasting transformation. Look at who you are today compared to who you were a few years ago. You are not the same person who reacted immediately to every disappointment. You no longer seek approval with the same desperation. You have learned to pause before making decisions. You have learned that peace is more valuable than proving yourself right. These changes may seem small, but heaven celebrates every one of them because they reveal that your spirit has matured. Archangel Michael says, there is someone listening who has quietly wondered whether they have missed God's purpose because of mistakes made in the past. Hear this clearly. Divine purpose is stronger than human failure when the heart remains surrendered. Peter denied. David stumbled. Moses doubted. Yet God's plan continued because mercy rewrote what guilt tried to erase. Do not allow yesterday's failures to convince you that tomorrow's calling has disappeared. The enemy often reminds you of your past because he fears your future. He knows that once you fully accept God's forgiveness, his accusations lose their power. That is why old memories sometimes return without warning. They are not appearing because God wants to condemn you. They appear because fear hopes you will reopen doors that grace has already closed. Archangel Michael says, release those memories today. Do not carry what Christ has already carried for you. You were never meant to spend your life reliving forgiven moments. You were created to move forward with confidence, knowing that heaven defines you by redemption rather than regret. Every step you take in freedom weakens the chains that once tried to hold you captive. As this freedom grows inside you, something remarkable begins happening around you. You start attracting different conversations, different opportunities, different relationships, not because you have become someone else, but because the peace within you changes what you recognize and what you choose to welcome into your life. Discernment begins replacing desperation. Wisdom begins replacing impulse. Archangel Michael says, very soon, you will face a decision that appears small on the surface but carries lasting significance. Others may overlook it, but your spirit will sense its importance. Do not rush that moment. Bring it before God. Listen more than you speak. Sometimes one faithful decision quietly redirects an entire future. Heaven often changes destinies through simple acts of obedience that the world hardly notices. You have spent enough time fearing that one wrong decision could destroy God's plan for your life. Remember this instead. God's grace is greater than your uncertainty. He is fully capable of redirecting those who sincerely seek Him. Walk humbly. Stay teachable. Keep your heart open, and He will guide your steps, even when the road curves in ways you did not expect. Archangel Michael says, there is a new confidence rising within you, though you may not yet have words for it. It is not arrogance. It is quiet assurance. It is the confidence that comes from remembering how many times God has already carried you through situations that once seemed impossible. Every previous rescue becomes a reason to trust Him again today. The secret that began unfolding at the start of this message is now revealing its deeper meaning. It was never only about discovering what heaven had prepared for you. It was about discovering the person heaven has been preparing you to become. Blessings come and go, seasons change, opportunities appear and disappear, but the transformed heart God is building within you will remain through every chapter that follows. Archangel Michael says, one final veil is about to be lifted. When it is, you will see that even the moments you once considered your greatest losses were quietly leading you toward your greatest purpose. The connection is so profound that once you recognize it, gratitude will replace confusion, peace will replace striving, and faith will become stronger than ever before. That final revelation is closer than you think, and it will prepare you for the closing chapter of this journey, where heaven will reveal not only what lies ahead, but why your name has been carried in God's heart through every season of your life. Archangel Michael says, the final revelation is closer than you think, and it will prepare you for the closing chapter of this journey, where heaven will reveal not only what lies ahead, but why your name has been carried in God's heart through every season of your life. This truth has been surrounding you since before your first breath. It has quietly followed you through every victory and every trial, waiting for the moment when your spirit would be mature enough to embrace it without fear. There were seasons when you believed your life was moving without direction. You watched others celebrate milestones while you remained in places that seemed unchanged. You questioned whether your prayers had reached heaven at all. Yet every moment of waiting was accomplishing something your eyes could not measure. While you focused on the visible, God continued working within the invisible. Every delay became another brushstroke in a masterpiece you could not yet recognize. Archangel Michael says, Do you remember the moments when you almost gave up? Not because you stopped believing in God, but because you stopped believing anything could change. Those moments were some of the most important in your journey. Heaven watched as you chose faith one more time, one more prayer, one more act of obedience, one more decision to trust despite exhaustion. Those small choices became powerful testimonies before the courts of heaven because perseverance always carries greater weight than comfort. You often imagined that miracles would arrive like lightning, sudden and impossible to ignore. Sometimes they do. But many of heaven's greatest miracles unfold quietly. A hardened heart begins to soften. Fear loses its grip one day at a time. Wisdom replaces confusion. Peace enters a room where anxiety once ruled. These miracles are no less extraordinary simply because they grow gradually. In many ways, they are even greater because they endure. Archangel Michael says, "There is someone whose opinion has carried too much influence over your life. Their words shaped your confidence more than you realized. Their criticism echoed inside your thoughts long after the conversation ended. Even now, there are moments when you hear those old voices attempting to define your future. But hear heaven's answer today. No human opinion has the authority to cancel what God has spoken. The Creator's voice is greater than every accusation that has ever been directed toward you. The enemy understood something that you did not fully recognize. If he could not stop God's purpose, he would attempt to convince you that you were unworthy of it. He planted seeds of insecurity through disappointment, comparison, rejection, and fear. Yet every lie begins losing its strength the moment truth is welcomed into the heart. Today, heaven is replacing those lies with a new understanding. You are not chosen because you are perfect. You are chosen because God's grace is sufficient. Archangel Michael says, "Look carefully at the people who have entered your life during your hardest seasons. Some stayed only briefly, offering exactly the encouragement you needed before continuing on their own path. Others remained faithfully beside you when almost everyone else disappeared. None of those encounters were meaningless. Heaven often sends people as living reminders that you have never walked alone. Even those who unknowingly encouraged you became instruments of divine compassion. There were also people who brought pain into your story. It is difficult to understand why God allows certain encounters, yet even those relationships carried hidden lessons. They taught discernment, they revealed your strength, they exposed areas where healing was still needed. Most importantly, they showed you that your security cannot rest in changing human hearts, but only in the unchanging heart of God. Archangel Michael says, "Now a fresh season is beginning to breathe upon your life. You may not see dramatic evidence immediately, but the atmosphere around your future is already changing. The prayers that once seemed distant are drawing nearer. The opportunities prepared for you are moving closer with every faithful step. Even now, unseen doors are beginning to unlock at precisely the right moment. Do not become impatient during these final moments of preparation. Many people abandon their journey just before breakthrough because the waiting feels longest near the finish. Yet the final stretch often requires the deepest trust. A farmer does not abandon the field because the harvest has not appeared one day before its appointed time. Instead, hope grows stronger because the season of fulfillment is near. Archangel Michael says, "Very soon you will understand why certain answers could not have arrived earlier. If heaven had fulfilled every desire according to your original timeline, some blessings would have become burdens. Some relationships would have distracted you from your calling. Some opportunities would have inflated pride instead of producing gratitude. God's delays were never punishments. They were acts of love designed to preserve both your future and your heart. There is a peace beginning to settle over you as these words reach your spirit. That peace is your confirmation. It is not based upon emotions alone. It is the quiet witness that God remains faithful even when life appears uncertain. Hold tightly to that peace. Protect it from unnecessary fear, endless comparison, and voices that constantly predict failure. Peace is one of heaven's greatest gifts because it allows you to hear God's direction above the noise of the world. Archangel Michael says, "You have asked many times, 'Lord, what is my purpose?' Today heaven answers with gentle clarity. Your purpose has never been limited to one occupation, one achievement, or one moment. Your first purpose has always been to reflect God's love wherever He places you. Every other assignment grows from that foundation. When love leads your actions, wisdom guides your choices, and humility shapes your heart, you become a living testimony of God's presence. The revelation that began with urgency is now reaching its final preparation. One last truth remains before the mystery is completely unveiled. It is the truth that will transform every unanswered question into lasting confidence. When you see it, you will no longer ask whether God has been with you. Instead, you will marvel at how He was guiding every detail long before you ever recognized His hand. And in that final moment, you will discover that the greatest secret heaven wanted to reveal was never hidden in your circumstances. It was hidden within the calling that God placed inside you from the very beginning, a calling that is now ready to shine brighter than ever as the final chapter of this message unfolds. Archangel Michael says, "The calling that God placed inside you from the very beginning is now ready to shine brighter than ever as the final chapter of this message unfolds." This is why heaven stopped you here today. It was never to fill your heart with fear or leave you wondering about the future. It was to remind you that your story has always been held in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning. Every step, every tear, every unanswered prayer, every unexpected blessing has been leading to this moment of understanding. For so long you searched for evidence that God was near. You looked for dramatic signs, extraordinary miracles, and unmistakable answers. Yet as you reflect upon your journey, you begin to realize that His greatest miracle was His constant presence. He never abandoned you during the darkest nights. He never withdrew His love when you stumbled. He never turned away when your faith felt weak. Even when you believed you were standing alone, heaven surrounded you with mercy that your eyes could not yet perceive. Archangel Michael says, "This is the secret heaven wanted you to discover. God's greatest gift was never simply the blessing you prayed for. His greatest gift has always been His presence walking beside you through every season. Blessings may come and go. Circumstances may rise and fall. People may enter and leave your life. But the faithful presence of God remains unchanged forever. That truth is stronger than every fear you have ever faced. Now look at your life with new eyes. Those closed doors were not signs of rejection. They were acts of protection. Those delayed answers were not evidence of neglect. They were proof of divine wisdom. Those painful endings were not the destruction of your purpose. They were the preparation for a beginning that could only arrive after your heart had grown stronger. What once appeared to be broken pieces now fit together into a masterpiece designed by the hands of God Himself. Archangel Michael says, "As you continue walking forward, do not carry yesterday's burdens into tomorrow's promises. Lay them down. Release the weight of regret. Release the fear of failure. Release the need to understand every detail before taking the next faithful step. Heaven has never required perfect knowledge. Heaven has always honored willing hearts. Continue trusting even when the road curves beyond your sight, because the one guiding you has already walked every step ahead of you. There will be moments in the coming days when old fears attempt to return. You may hear familiar whispers telling you that nothing will change, that you have waited too long, or that your prayers have reached their limit. When those thoughts appear, remember this message. Remember how many times God has already carried you. Remember every unexpected provision, every quiet answer, every unseen protection. Let your memories become monuments of faith instead of reminders of fear. Archangel Michael says, "Do not underestimate the influence your life is about to have on others. Someone will find hope because you refused to surrender. Someone will discover courage because you continued believing through uncertainty. Someone will recognize God's faithfulness because your testimony points them toward His goodness. Your journey has never been only about you. Heaven has always intended to multiply your blessing through the lives you will touch. The season before you is not a season of striving. It is a season of walking confidently in what God has already prepared. You do not have to force every door open. You do not have to convince everyone to understand your path. You do not have to compete for what heaven has already assigned to you. What belongs to you by God's purpose will arrive in His perfect time, and no power on earth can permanently prevent what He has ordained. Archangel Michael says, "Continue protecting your peace. Fill your heart with truth instead of fear. Choose gratitude even before every answer appears. Celebrate small victories because they are often the first signs of greater miracles unfolding. Remain kind even when others misunderstand you. Remain faithful even when progress seems slow. Heaven is never late, and every promise carries an appointed time. As this message comes to its close, know that you are not brought here by coincidence. If these words have spoken to your heart, receive them as an invitation to draw closer to God, to seek His wisdom through prayer and His truth through His word. Let your confidence rest not in predictions about tomorrow, but in the unchanging character of the one who loves you completely and faithfully. Archangel Michael says, "Lift your head with hope. Leave fear behind. Walk into this new season with courage, because the God who has sustained you until today will remain with you tomorrow. The light before you is greater than the darkness behind you. The peace within you is stronger than the chaos around you. And the purpose placed inside you is more powerful than any obstacle standing in your way. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He strengthen your heart when you feel weary, guide your steps when the path seems uncertain, and fill your home with His peace that surpasses understanding. May your faith continue to grow, your hope remain steadfast, and your love reflect His grace in every season of life. Remember always that you are never beyond His reach, never forgotten by His mercy, and never separated from His love. If this message encouraged your heart today, take a quiet moment to thank God for His faithfulness and share His hope with someone who may need encouragement. May His peace remain with you today and always. Amen.